I used to be ugly. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but I'm not saying this in a self-deprecating, fishing for compliments kind of way. It's just the truth. I'm also not trying to say that now I'm the most prettiest, most gorgeous girl in this room, because I know that I'm not. But growing up, I remember that I used to wish and dream and plead to one day be able to relate to a phrase that my mom sometimes used to describe other girls. She used to say, "Ella no es bonita que encante, ni fea que espante." Basically meaning that I wouldn't be the prettiest girl in the room, but I definitely wouldn't be the ugliest. The girl you see on the stage, she looked completely different and also acted completely different from the girl she was only a few years ago. This is what I looked like in 2021. Growing up was really, really difficult, if you couldn't already tell. I wasn't ugly in a traditional acne braces type of way, but because of my crazy eye prescription, I had these glasses that made my eyes look significantly smaller, more than they already are. I had a fashion sense that screamed lost and confused, and I was painfully shy, to the point where I only talked to 3 different people. But by my junior year of high school, I gained consciousness in terms of my appearance. I woke up one day and I decided, enough is enough. So I ditched my glasses and I started wearing contacts. I learned how to do my own makeup. I started working out. I completely switched up my wardrobe, and I tried to be more outgoing. I tried to make more real, genuine friends. All of a sudden, I was considered pretty, or at least pretty enough for people to notice me, talk to me, or even want to be my friend. Compliments were suddenly there, where they used to be silenced. Doors were not held open for me. Teachers actually noticed my hand quietly raised in the back of the classroom. Boys who had once ignored me, out of a sudden, wanted to talk to me. I felt the world soften for me. The biggest accessory to being ugly, which I can only recognize now, was the way people treated me. Honestly, people treated me the same way that I would treat someone who looked like myself back then. They ignored me, dismissed me, and acted like I was background noise in their own lives. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's okay, because of course it's not. But let's all be honest here, appearance definitely matters. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like for you all to look to the person either to your left or to the right. Now, think about whether or not that person is attractive. Now, based on your answer, ask yourself, would I treat them any differently? Well, for about 66% of the population, the answer is yes. A Princeton University study showed that first impressions are formed in less than 1/10 of a second, with appearance being the biggest factor in that judgment. So yes, most times your face does the talking before you can even open your mouth. Because the fact is that we, as a species, we as humans are more interested in hearing ideas, presentations, TED Talks, from someone who's more attractive, from someone who's easier on the eyes. If I had walked in today looking the same way that I looked back then, would you even want to listen to what I have to say? Or would you have said, "What does she know about pretty privilege?" and rolled your eyes? Of course, in today's society, pretty privilege is taboo. But in professional and educational spaces, there's this unspoken rule. If you're pretty, life is just easier. There are studies that show that conventionally attractive people are more likely to get hired, promoted, and taken more seriously in leadership roles. In fact, a study done in 2021 by the National Bureau of Economic Research states that individuals considered attractive tend to earn an average of 5 to 10% more than their less attractive counterparts, even when their skills and experience or identical. This means that prettier people are literally paid more money. Prettier people are perceived as more trustworthy and charismatic, even when they're not, and even when their skills are the same as someone considered less attractive. Another study, this one done in 2017 by the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, revealed that 66% of its participants were more likely to consider an attractive person as trustworthy and competent, even when presented with identical qualifications and resumes. Which means you could literally be the same on paper as someone else, but if they're attractive, then they have the upper hand. But here's the twist. This pretty power isn't always a gift. Yes, pretty is power, but that power also comes with a price. Despite what you may think, being attractive, especially in the workspace, isn't as easy as it sounds. I think we're all familiar with the dumb blonde stereotype, right? Well, it's a perfect example of how sometimes being pretty or attractive in the workspace can sometimes undermine your credibility. In 2020, Rice University conducted a study that showed that pretty women were more likely to be seen as less competent, but only in specific fields like science, finance, and law. Hiring managers rated these women lower in intelligence compared to their male or less attractive peers. It goes to show that if you're a pretty woman, you could be seen as dumber and praised for your looks rather than your work. There's a higher chance that you could be underestimated, sexualized, or expected to be extra likable because, well, you're pretty. If you don't smile enough, you're cold. If you're assertive, you're intimidating. If you make a mistake, people just assume you got the job because of your looks in the first place. And then there's the biggest cost of all, our future generations. The pressure to look absolutely perfect is everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're a model or an influencer or just any normal human being trying to exist. Needing to be pretty has infected almost everyone in newer generations. This obsession with beauty, thinness, perfection shapes generations, just like mine. Generations bombarded with images of seemingly flawless people who have the resources like professional lighting, personal trainers, all the makeup in the world at their fingertips, and time in general to tweak their appearance. Newer inclusions of not only physical but digital enhancements like Facetune and Photoshop make it almost impossible for these younger generations to not internalize beauty standards. This infographic by the Pew Research Center states that out of all the women in the United States, only 34% of African American, 25% of Hispanic, and 12% of Caucasian women actually consider themselves to be very attractive. Body image statistics show that 42% of girls first through third grade wish they could be thinner, and 81% of 10-year-olds are afraid of being fat. From 12 to 14-year-olds posting videos of what they do to light on the aging process, to slideshows trending on social media apps with hundreds of likes, comments, and interactions titled, "When I see girls my age look so effortlessly beautiful, and I realize I will never be like them. And I hate the way I look. I wish I could look like the other girls." The pressure to need to look a certain way in order to fit into society is damaging our and future generations. The absolute necessity younger girls are feeling to need to have curves, but then also to have a 6-inch waist, or to finally achieve that small, invisible, tiny waist, and then being demanded by society to have BBL curves it's impossible to keep up. This constant exposure to media, where yes, bodies might look the way everyone thinks is attractive, but there are so many more enhancements behind this media that is rarely talked about. Effortless beauty content consumed by these generations don't even realize that the majority of this media is a result of cosmetic enhancements, beauty filters, professional lighting, but it's still becoming increasingly normalized, which in turn makes people susceptible into believing that this is in fact the new beauty baseline when it isn't. If you couldn't already tell, pretty privilege definitely does not guarantee self-esteem. In fact, it could quite literally do the opposite. When people see your appearance, they don't see you. And if you've been on both sides of the attractiveness spectrum, like I have, you know the whiplash. You know what it's like to one day be invisible, but then out there for the world to see, but for reasons that have nothing to do with who you are as a person. I never really had a lot of confidence growing up, but being pretty only really made me feel more judged, and like I had to keep investing into a version of myself that was perfect to society, but not to me. When the whole world rewards you solely for being attractive, it's really, really easy to base your worth to your looks. When beauty is your currency, what happens when it goes away? Studies show that individuals highly praised for their looks were 50% more likely to struggle with body image and lower self-esteem issues as they aged. When we internalize the idea that our worth is tied to our looks, is tied to something that will eventually fade away, we are bound to set ourselves and future generations up for an identity crisis in the future. But what do? Well, first, we start by acknowledging it. Pretty privilege is taboo, but it exists, and pretending that it doesn't just keeps it in power. We need to recognize that this system, built around prettier people having an advantage and needing to be pretty because of that, was built to make us question ourselves. But the second we start questioning ourselves, it loses its power over us. Hiring managers, professionals, educators need to check their biases. Why are we assuming that someone is more capable just because they're pretty or attractive? And why are we dismissing people just because they don't fit conventional beauty standards? Second, we need to start valuing substance over surface. Sure, compliments are nice, and it's nice to know that you're pretty, but imagine a world where people are praised for their work ethic, their ideas, just as much, or maybe even more, than they are for their looks. To make a future where younger people, just like me, grow up knowing that their worth isn't just how good they look. Lastly, we need to change the way that we all talk about beauty. Instead of treating beauty like some necessary trophy that you need on your shelf, we should treat it like what it really is. Only one aspect of a person, not the defining one. I've been on both sides of the coin. I've been invisible and I've been seen. I've been underestimated and overestimated, but for reasons that had nothing to do with my actual abilities. And if there's one thing that I've learned, it's that we are so much more than how we look. It's true and it's unfair. Pretty privilege is real, but it doesn't have to define us. We can take back the power that it holds. By shifting our focus from surface to substance, we can make the world a better place. But not just for pretty people, for everyone. And that's an idea worth sharing. Thank you very much.